Hey, good morning from still sunny Kansas City, and welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly conversation about the Kansas City Royals with the folks at the Star who know them best, and with you. You know the operation. Send us your questions and comments, and we will address those here. And by we, I mean Lynn Worthy and Vahe Gregorian. They're here. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Blair. Good morning, Lynn. I've already talked to you, Lynn, more than I did last time I saw you at the game because we both had our heads down and we're typing. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
Hey, shout out to our sponsor, the University of Kansas Health System. We will hear from them later in the show. So, this is the last week to catch the Royals. The final week has arrived. Well, technically, it arrived yesterday, right? With the makeup game in Cleveland, which the Royals dropped 8-3. But the regularly scheduled final week has arrived with 3 games against Cleveland and then 3 more against Minnesota to close out the season. So, listen, Vahe, you and I were here in 2014 and 15, and how much fun did we have covering those teams that went on to the World Series and, of course, won it in 2015. The years since then have been, a couple years after that, the Royals were involved in 500-ish and in the chase until the final few weeks of the season, and then a couple of 100-loss seasons after that. And of course, last year did not get into the expanded playoff. So I guess it's a roundabout way of saying the final week of the regular season, to me, even though there's no postseason here for the Royals, it's still a little sad. Maybe for you and I, maybe not for Lynn. I'll get Lynn on this in a second. But just to have the Royals on, in the stadium, or you have them on TV, it's sort of the background noise of summer and late spring and early fall. It's a little sad when baseball season ends. I don't know if we feel that way about a football team. We've covered I've been around for a lot of bad Chiefs seasons where you just, God, let's get this season over with. And Lynn, you were in an NBA city before coming here. I don't know what it's like in an NBA or an NHL city when a non-playoff season ends. But I don't know, maybe I'm romanticizing it a little too much. But you get to the baseball season.
I like your point, Blair. I mean, it is funny, even when the Royals have been out of any race for a long time. There's something about the rhythm and ambient noise, or whatever you want to call it, of baseball going on all the time that I think strikes a different chord than other sports do. It's the everyday aspect of it. It's why there was a different kind of pace to the excitement in 2014 and 2015 than any of the Chiefs' postseason runs, because it was every day. So, yeah, we'll miss it. And I think, Lynn can testify to this better than anybody. We're going to miss it, though, with a little accent on the idea that things are kind of percolating and bubbling up in ways that certainly suggest better days ahead, and an eagerness to get to 2022.
Lynn, it's different for you, isn't it? I mean, you're there every day, right? You are the everyday Royals reporter, and at the games, I don't know if not only at the stadium every day, but once the season ends, it continues to be an everyday enterprise for you. You don't move on. Unlike 2 years ago, when you did move on from a football season to a baseball season, you don't move on to covering the Chiefs or college basketball or anything like that. But how about you? In your years of covering baseball, do you find yourself a little sad going into the final week of the season?
I guess a little bit, in terms of, you get into the routine, you get into the everyday aspect that Vahe alluded to, and that sort of becomes, your normal. So when that changes, that's a little different. And, there's part of you that obviously it's like, okay, you can take a little bit of a deep breath and maybe not have to be as every day in terms of being at the ballpark and everything and filing stories and all that. But I think there's still, like I say, you're going to miss that. But I also think that there's part of how the team is going that determines that too. I mean, if you feel like there's stuff that you're starting to see as the season winds down, or there's things that you're sort of waiting to see how they turn out and what's going to be going forward, then that sort of plays into that too. Because if you get to the end of the season and you just put everybody out of their misery, that's one thing. But if you get to the end of the season and you're like, okay, there's some stuff here, then I think that's different. And I wouldn't say that this is a put everybody out of their misery type season. I think there's definitely things to look forward to. There's, if you're trying to be optimistic, you say, okay, this might, whether it's the pitching staff or some young guys, say, okay, this might be something they can, have some things to really be excited about going forward. And then if you're, and to me, it's just a matter of, it's really, it's not so much counting on this is going to be so great in the future. It's more like waiting to see how things develop and wanting to see, like, answering some of the questions that we have. So, yeah, I think there's going to be an aspect of missing every day, but then there's going to be an aspect of, ready to take a deep breath and looking forward to what's going to come next.
Hey, Blair, you'll remember this in ways that neither Lynn nor I could, since you were here. And in a way, it's a meaningless parallel question. In a way, it could play out as relevant. Do you think is this a parallel, seemingly, hopefully, for the Royals to like 2011 when all those guys got called up, or is it sort of in a way the year before that when all these guys are going to get called up? I mean, I don't know. It's not a perfect fit one way or another, but I'm just trying to go back to the mood then when they'd emerged from a couple of the 100 lost seasons and some darker days, but still weren't making the turn.
Right. A decade ago, 2011 was the year that Salvador Perez made his major league debut. And I think Hosmer and Moustakas both made their major league debuts in 2011. And already on the parent club were Alex Gordon, who may have had his best season in baseball that year, as Salvador Perez is having this year, and Billy Butler, of course, on the team. The Royals were still a few years away from being in the in the postseason, but there was some bubbling enthusiasm about what we were seeing with the Royals and in the minor league system. And I do want to talk about that a little bit later on what we're seeing, the very successful minor league campaigns of the Royals this year. So yeah, with MJ Melendez and Nick Pratto and of course Bobby Witt Jr. and the pitchers who we have seen come up this year have shown flashes of promise. When they've pitched in for the big league club, I do see that. I think the Royals feel that as well. So fingers are crossed. 2011, we look back. 2011 was a year that set up big promise for 2012, and 2012 fizzled out. The Royals fell flat, and that was the year of the Our Time media campaign. That was just a bad PR move and disappointed fans greatly. 2013, of course, they finished 10 games over 500, and then that sets up 14 and 15. I'd like to think that this team is where the 2012 team was in terms of development, and what we might see from the Royals next season. So Kerry and Scott have weighed in, and others. One thing we're going to do here in a moment is try to identify who the Royals player and pitcher of the year are going to be. I think there's enough evidence submitted that we can make some educated guesses on this. I want to know what you all think about that. Who should the Royals player and pitcher of the year should be? And I probably should just narrow it down to pitcher of the year, because I believe it's obvious. As Scott writes, can Salvi break Jorge Soler's home run record in the last 6 games? Lynn, I know you had a story that's on kansascity.com right now laying out what's in front of Salvador Perez here in this final week of the regular season. How about just going down some of the numbers and what he's still chasing?
Yeah, so he's already, of course, set the record for the most home runs in the season by a primary catcher, that being the distinction there. He's caught at least 75% of the games. It's not, he's only had, I think it's still 31 home runs as a catcher while in the lineup as a catcher. So that record's out of reach just in terms of, he's at 31, I believe, and the record for home runs while playing catcher, Javi Lopez had 42 back in 2003. So he's had some hot streaks, but talking about like 12 more, 13 more home runs in 6 games. I'm not seeing that one. But, I mean, we've seen some multi-home run games, but I don't know about 6 of them in a row. But the franchise record, he's at 46 right now, still tied for the major league lead with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And the franchise record is 48. Jorge Soler did that in 2019. So he's really only 2 behind tying Soler and 3 from breaking with 6 games left. So is that a lot to ask? Yeah. But at the same time, in this season, I mean, we saw a stretch where Salvi homered in, I believe it was 5 consecutive games. I remember which it was 5. Yeah, I think it was 5 was the Sweeney record that he matched.
With 2 grand slams in there, I think, too.
Yeah. And I'm going off the top of my head, which is probably just a bad idea altogether. But I believe it was 5. And I know it was a Sweeney record, and I believe that it was 5 that he matched, 5 consecutive games. He's had multi-homer games. I think he had a stretch where he had multi-homer games back-to-back, too, or within a short period of time. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But again, so that's, 2 home runs to tie Soler, 3 to break that record. The catcher record's probably out of reach. The American League catcher record is Pudge, and I think that mark is 35. So, again, as a catcher, and Salvi right now is at 31. So that one's probably a tough one, but it depends on if he's in the game at catcher for the rest of these games, the last 6, and then, if he gets the Soler, then that means he's probably getting close to that AL record too.
117 RBIs going into tonight's game, which has him 4 up on Abreu. Am I right about if I got the math right? He's 117, 4 up on Abreu. And the other thing I really enjoyed, Lynn, reading your story is only a couple of players in the American League, maybe in baseball, are hitting the ball harder than Salvador Perez this year. And listen, that's a stat and a figure that's somewhat new, relatively new to baseball in terms of just the fan consumption. So I don't know where he's ranked in previous times in his career, but I imagine this is a somewhat new development, and it reflected in his numbers of home runs and RBIs. Just the fact that the ball is jumping off of his bat.
Yeah, and we saw it last year in the shortened season, and it was one of those ones where it was like, okay, we saw it. Obviously, he had a really good season, won a Silver Slugger. I think it was 11 home runs, or I'm trying to remember how many it was last year, but in the shorter season. But it was, carrying it over to 162 is obviously different. It's, to keep up that rate. I believe it's Judge and, if I'm remembering right, I think it's Judge and Tatis might be the only guys who hit the ball that hard. That's 95 miles per hour exit velocity on a consistent basis at a higher rate. I think it's those 2 are the only ones above him. And then raw numbers, the number of baseballs he's hit that hard, the only person who's better than that is Guerrero of Vladdy Jr. So, just in terms of hitting the ball hard on a consistent basis from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, there's not many in baseball who've done it like Salvi this year.
So, Vahe, let's not pretend there's nobody, that there's another candidate for Royals Player of the Year. He may be the most definitive Royals Player of the Year candidate that I can remember. Lorenzo Cain won it both in 14 and 15, which I thought, it could have been several players then, but Whit Merrifield's won it once since then. Soler, of course, in 2019, but Salvi had this thing wrapped up by the All-Star break, I think.
Yeah, he did, and he certainly got extra fan sentiment at the All-Star break after the purported snub of the during his home run derby appearance. I was laughing to myself earlier, thinking like, how long did that Balboni record stand? Like 30 something years. And who knew that Mike Moustakas breaking it would be like the equivalent of shattering the 4-minute mile? Now these guys, are free to do what they do. But a little more seriously, I mean, Lynn has really identified all these things so well. And I just think, there is a bit of a marvel here. I think today or yesterday was the 15th anniversary of the Royals signing Salvi, and the guy is 16 at the time. And, we know a lot of the story, although Dayton was telling me some stuff I didn't realize before, how unimpressed he was when he heard that they signed him for $65,000, couldn't be very good. And then next thing you know, they just keep getting reports up through the system. And I bring all that up just to say, here he is. He didn't turn 32 yet, did he? He's still 31?
Right.
At 31, absolutely better than ever. Markedly better than ever in terms of his power. Never had more than 27 home runs before this season. So it's just great. He has lapped the field with the Royals, and it's funny. I mean, if he weren't having this kind of season, you could talk about a few other things. The best Nicky Lopez he can be was pretty good this year. Maybe there's a different sort of category for what Nicky Lopez did, but you're right, Blair. Far and away, head and shoulders above the rest.
There is an award that the Royals hand out. It's called a special achievement, right? And I think it's basically almost a runner-up for Player of the Year, but it's somebody who achieved something that's out of the ordinary, and I think Nicky Lopez might be a leader for that award. Okay, well, what about the most difficult, the more difficult choice when it comes to Royals awards? Pitcher of the Year. I don't know if anything in the last 6 games is going to change the strength of the candidates. It's been an odd year. The Royals aren't going to have a starter with 10 victories this year, I don't believe. Right? That 8 is tied for the lead. They're not going to have a reliever with as many as 20 saves unless Barlow goes crazy here in the last week. But Lynn, who do you think are the top candidates for Royals Pitcher of the Year? We've actually had suggestions from Scott and Kerry with different names. So what do you think?
Well, I think the more I think about it, that I probably would settle more towards Scott Barlow for what he's meant for that bullpen and the number of games that he's had an impact on. And again, like you said, he's not going to have 20 saves, even though I think he's up to 16 now, which is twice as many as anybody else on the staff. But just the presence he's had in terms of being able to pitch in tight moments, be able to pitch as much as he has. I think the only person on the staff with more appearances I want to say right now is Brent's. And this is coming off a year where he was one of the most used guys in that shortened season, and his usage was pretty high the year before that. So he's a guy who takes the ball every time and performs. He's one of the better relievers in baseball. So, and because you don't have a starter who's carried it over the entire season. I mean, you look at, obviously, I think one of the suggestions that popped up was Carlos Hernandez. But you're also talking about a starter who I think is fewer than 100 innings in the big leagues this year and who's spent some time in the bullpen, spent time at AAA. I think, it's kind of I was thinking about this today too, is, you sort of forget about Duffy because of how much time he missed. And I think he's still not, I think it's like a 20 inning difference between him and what Hernandez has done. And it seems like he was gone a long time ago between the injuries and before the trade deadline and everything. So I think just because of how many games he's had an impact on, I think he's actually fairly close, Barlow close in terms of innings total to what Hernandez has done too as a reliever, which you don't often see. And then, I think that I lean towards Barlow, even though you could make the case for Hernandez just in terms of how he's performed when he's been with the club.
Yeah, Hernandez is 6-2 with a 3.68 ERA. He's made 11 starts, 24 appearances, 11 starts. Scott Barlow, 5-3, 2.49 ERA, 69 games, 16 saves. Brents and Josh Stamont, I think, are the other two maybe effective relievers who might gather some consideration. But Vahe, do you have a thought on this? Are you a Barlow guy?
Yeah, I think the case is really good for Barlow. I was trying to figure out the way to, in my mind, to categorize Hernandez, just because I don't know. Lynn could speak to this better, I think, but I do feel like he's the guy that surprised me maybe most this year. I know some people saw signs in him, but I thought, with the exception of a couple outings, including that Oakland one a week or so ago, whenever that was, pretty nice season. And I'd have to say, I figure he's established himself as to me anyway, a nice component of what they've got coming. And that's with, a bunch of other people that you feel like are going to be part of that. So I think he is, to me, maybe the guy that has been the most pleasant surprise in the pitching. And I was just looking these numbers up. I think they had 28 guys pitched this year, somewhere in that category. They've been trying a lot of different people.
Yeah. Yes, they have. They have. Okay, hey, let's take a break here and hear from the University of Kansas medical system. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the success that the Royals have had at the minor league level.
The Kansas City Royals lineup is backed up by the region's strongest team in healthcare, the University of Kansas Health System. We both suit up with one goal in mind: to win. The University of Kansas Health System, official healthcare provider of the Royals.
We are back with Lynn Worthy and Vahe Gregorian talking Royals on SportsBeat Live with you. Still got time to get in some questions and comments. And Lynn, before we went to the break, I wanted to at least acknowledge the success of what's happened at the minor league level for the Royals. It's, a minor league season structure unlike anything that we've known, right? With every major league team with 4 organizations, right? AAA, AA, and then 2, a high A and a low A. And the top 3 organizations for the Royals this year had very, very good seasons. The low A, Columbia in South Carolina, finished last in its division. But, man, Omaha, Northwest Arkansas, Quad Cities, really good year. And, referring back to the point Vahe made earlier about, maybe indicator of future success, that was true of the Royals minor league system back in, I forgot what year it was when they were Baseball America's minor league or organization of the year based on their minor league success. But it was one of those years leading into the success that they eventually had. So I don't know where these Royals would rank in terms of, organization of the year when it comes to minor league success. But better to win games at the minor league level than to lose them. And the Royals have won a bunch of them.
They've won, as their affiliates have won, and they've also just had success as far as producing individual guys who've been among, some of the top in baseball, whether you're talking about Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, Nick Prado, Jackson Kowar, when he was in the minors before he came up to the major leagues, one of the top pitchers in baseball, Daniel Lynch. So they've had it from in terms of being able to produce individual guys and as far as team success. And, I'm sure obviously people can just say the team success is whatever, but I know the Royals don't think of it that way. I know I've covered other organizations that talked about winning in the minor leagues helps to sort of set the tone and develop those habits and get guys ready to win in the major leagues. And I've talked to players who were in the Royal system when they were that blue wave that we were talking about, that was the top organization. And part of what they talk about was winning titles. I think Danny Duffy has referenced how many, he's got the American League pennant championship in the ring from that. He's got the World Series ring, but he's also got several rings from his time in the minor leagues. And he talked about that the last few years several times about how that was a big deal and how they won as a group and how those guys won all the way up and expected to win when they got to the big league. So it's not something that you just, brush off as it doesn't really matter. At least not, it matters to those guys. And I think that's probably more important than whether or not it matters to us.
Yeah, it's not insignificant, Vahe, is it? That
No, I don't think so. And I was going to just add to Lynn's point there about the very last part, which is that not only have they had those bursts of success across it that you thought were harbingers of what was to come, but I wish I had the specific number of championships in front of me, but I don't. But Lynn just referred to it. That group, the Duffy, Hosmer, Moustakas, Kane group, won, I think, at 3 different levels before they got to the major leagues. I think maybe it was just 2, but that really informed their mindset when they got here. I mean, obviously each had their own ups and downs and individual struggles, but they felt like a championship core together.
Wilmington was especially successful for the Royals in those years. They're high A back in the old Carolina League. Just to note, Bobby Witt Jr., I don't know if he's already done this because I saw this over the weekend, but he was at least going into the weekend 1 stolen base away from becoming a 30-30 player. 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases during his minor league season. It's only been done 8 times in baseball since 2000. If he gets that, if he becomes a 30-30 guy. So, but Lynn, one player who you mentioned him is kind of curious is Jackson Kowar, who AAA Central. Well, I don't know how they designate it, but pitcher of the year. But it just didn't translate into major league success. And he sounded frustrated talking to you and others in the media the other day after his start in Cleveland.
Yeah, and just since I did take a second to look it up, Bobby Witt's still at 29 stolen bases, so it's 1 shy of the 30-30. He's already got 33 home runs, which should actually be 34. I was reminded of that the other day because he had that one that wasn't counted as a home run because they said he didn't step on home plate, so he's got 33. I forgot about that because it was so early in the season, but so yeah, he's 1 shy, and I think I saw the other day where he's because he's their minor league organizational hitter of the year, the George Brett Award. He's got I think he's the first 2020 guy for the Royals since Alex Gordon in the minor leagues. I remember seeing that. But yeah, Jackson, and the thing is it's not just a Royals say they see something there and nobody else sees it. It's like everybody sees Jackson Kowar as like this is a guy who's got everything you would need. So it's not like it's just the Royals are holding on to this guy and thinking that he's going to be something that he's not. It's like no, everybody who sees him sees what they see. Whether that's the third party places like Baseball America and MLB.com, just scouts, people who've seen him, teammates, like that's what it's supposed to look like. The stuff he's got is the right stuff. It's just putting it all together. And he talked about it yesterday. And, I wrote about today. I was trying to make sure it was the distinction there because he said, he's tired of coming in here and talking about the same things. And it wasn't distinction I was hoping it was clear was that he wasn't saying he was tired of talking to us. It wasn't like I'm tired of answering these questions. I think it was really I'm tired of the way things are going for me on the mound. It's not I don't want to be talking about it. It's I'm tired of this, the way things are going. And and the other part of that, because, you wonder with a young guy, he comes in there and he's frustrated and he's tired of what's going on. But I think maybe the more important part was he said, what I do feel like we've got an idea of how to fix it. And there's a plan on how to fix it. And he feels comfortable with that. And he's going to get it straightened out. Because if he just came in there and said, I don't know, this is, not going right. And I'm just tired, then that would be more of a problem, I think, than, okay, at least we know what we're doing to try and fix this thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what his future is. He may end up being a bullpen piece. I don't know. We'll talk more about that after the season, but that's going to do it for us today, and it's going to do it for this show for this baseball season. So,
hey, Blair, can I just interject one thing real quick?
Please do, Vahe.
I just kind of want to use our forum here to wish Mike Swanson of the Royals a fond farewell, and hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up with him more soon. But as we know, this is his last week after 1,726 years in the job. And in all seriousness, I know I speak for many when I say he's been great to work with, and one of those people who's old school, who made it work in this crazy new world of the way we deal with teams. And I'll miss him greatly. I think he's as good a person as you could have in that job in every way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lynn.
There's not a whole lot for me to add on to what Vahe said, except for just that, it makes a difference who you've got sort of helping, like we talked about earlier, the everyday, when you're trying to deal with stuff every day, especially when you talk about a team that, the last few years had some 100-loss season. It hasn't been all the, to go back to a reference from earlier this season, it hasn't been peaches and roses the entire year. And it helps when you've got somebody like Swanee to navigate that as far as, coordinating things from a media standpoint. So it's more of a behind the scenes thing that fans might not necessarily notice, but everybody around the team notices.
He's such a sentimental lug. Did you see his tweets from Cleveland? It was his final road game after 43 years in the business. And Vahe, you know this as well as anybody. He's so much part of the fabric of Kansas City sports, not just with the Royals, but his career dates back to the Bobby Bell, Willie Lanier, Len Dawson Chiefs, and the old Kansas City Athletics as well.
And even worked for UPI covering the Kansas City Scouts. Find somebody else that was ever involved with the Scouts around here anymore.
No, it's unbelievable, and I've been in this business for a long time, and I think I can say that not only is he the best that I've come across in baseball, but Mike Swanson's the best that I have ever come across in any sport doing the job that he does. He's just remarkable. He will absolutely be missed, and we wish him well in his retirement. So thanks for all you did for us, Mike Swanson. And thanks for all you guys have done for us in the audience who followed us all year. Like I said, this is our last show of the 2021 season. We will not stop talking baseball. Lynn Worthy, Vahe Gregorian, Sam Mellinger will be part of podcasts going forward. I don't know if they know that or not, but now they do. And it'll be great to continue the Royals and baseball conversation with them. So big thanks to Beth Welch, who's produced the programs all season long, starting back in February, and Neil Nakahoto for that introduction music and video that we put together, and the University of Kansas Medical System. Fantastic sponsor. Great to have them on board this year. So for Lynn and Vahe and Beth, thanks very much, and we'll keep talking baseball for you.